So people ask me all the time, what is the best car for Turo? It just depends on your style of renting these vehicles out. If you're somebody who's renting out hypercars like Lambos and Ferraris, or maybe you're a host who rents out luxury vehicles like BMWs, Range Rovers, and Mercedes, or maybe you're a host like myself who just rents out economy vehicles with the exception of minivans and third row seaters, then each one of those hosts is gonna have a different answer to that question, which vehicle is the best vehicle for Turo. Now, I don't believe there's one vehicle that's the best, but in this video, I want to share with you guys a recent vehicle that I just sold, and I actually had this vehicle for like 2 years. And overall, I'm really happy with this vehicle, especially the amount I was able to sell it for. So I want to share those numbers with you guys. But before I jump into the video, I just want to thank you guys for helping me get to 20K subs. I just recently hit that milestone and it feels like a dream come true. I know a lot of channels never see these kind of numbers, so I want to appreciate everybody who supported me along the way, whether by liking or watching, commenting, sharing, subscribing to this channel. And to thank you guys, I want to do a Q&A. So if there's anything you want to ask, go ahead and drop it down in the comments, and I will be setting that Q&A up, so just watch out for that. So let's jump into the video and let me share these numbers with you guys. So what do I mean when I say one of the best cars to put on Turo? Well, mostly talk about one, reliability of the car, how much work and maintenance you have to put into the vehicle while having it on your fleet. Customer satisfaction, do people actually like renting this car on a regular basis? And if they do rent it, do they see themselves keeping it for a longer period of time? And also the resale value, how much can you sell the vehicle for when you're done or when it's time to liquidate it, which also goes hand in hand with the ACV value, which is actual cash value. And this is what Turo would pay out in the event of a total loss situation. And believe it or not, guys, people crash these cars. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you an example of another vehicle I just did a claim on just a couple weeks ago that proves how important the ACV value is. So the vehicle I'm talking about is my 2017 Toyota Camry. I purchased this vehicle a couple years ago. It had 107,000 miles on it, and this was a pre-COVID sale. And at this time, the car market was not hot at all. It was actually dead. There was a lot of FUD in the environment, and people just weren't buying cars. So it was a great time to scoop some great deals up. Somebody once said that the best time to buy property is when there's blood in the streets. Now, I don't know who said that or if it even relates to buying cars, but I don't know, it just sounds raw, like blood in the streets. And I always wanted to use that analogy. So when there's blood in the street, go buy some cars. But this also proves that the car market does fluctuate as far as supply and demand, and that a certain car like this Toyota could be a lot cheaper at a certain period of time depending on what's going on in the economy, and you know, could be a lot more expensive at another period of time. And I'll show that right here. If I look up to buy this 2017 Toyota Camry right now, this is what the average cost would be at this very same auction, which is Manheim. So my purchase price of the vehicle was $7,200. I had some fees. Like when I buy these cars, I buy them on what they call a floor plan. So I really don't use my own money. I use the bank's money or the floor plan's money. So they actually fund the deal for me, and I pay them back a very small percentage of that transaction. And Manheim also charges a buyer's fees. So after all my fees, I was into this vehicle for $7,985. That's including the registration fees. And the total time I had this vehicle on Turo, which was 2 years, like, it's hard to believe, but I only spent $841 to maintain this vehicle. My insurance, basically $100 a month, was $2,800. So from the time I purchased this car in 2020 to when I sold it just a couple months ago, this vehicle grossed $19,788. Now, I felt like this vehicle could have grossed a little bit more, but I was kind of bringing it into a rough market. COVID had just hit. Lockdowns were issued, a lot of people weren't traveling, and all my other vehicles, including this Camry, were pretty much cut down to 50% of what they normally would have did on the platform. And also, I had a few damage claims on this car, mostly just bumpers, but I think I changed the bumper on this car like 3 or 4 times. So every time you do a damage claim and you have to go and buy the parts and wait on the body people to put it on, list it back on Turo, some of these things can be a little time consuming. It could take up to a week, 2 weeks, just depending on the shops you're actually working with. There were certain periods where the car was down. What's even crazier is that I recently sold this car for $10,000. That sounds crazy because I bought the car car 2 years ago for less than $8,000. I rented it out for 2 years. It had 107,000 miles. When I sold it, it had about 160. So I put on a good 50-something thousand miles in this car, pulled some equity out of it, and I was able to turn it around and sell this car for $10,000. I think that's the part that I highlight the most that makes this car one of my best vehicles, was the resale value. Having a car on the platform for 2 years and being able to sell it for $2,000 more, even with 50,000 more miles on it, to me is just incredible. And to my CPA, it really doesn't make sense. I had to sit down and break it down to him what I was doing, because he was like, well, if you buy a car for $8,000, shouldn't you be selling it for less 2 years later? I'm like, no, not me. I sell it for more, which brings my net profit on this vehicle to $18,162. And like I said, I feel like this vehicle could have did a lot better if, you know, the economy was doing right at the time, but I still can't be mad at these numbers. $18,162 adds up to about $648 in monthly revenue, and a lot of that was passive because people love renting this car. It would get rented out for a couple months at a time, a couple weeks at a time, and I even had a couple of regular customers that would book this car every weekend or every few days during the month. It was just an all-around incredible vehicle to have. And I didn't add any profits I made from the damage claims, because if you guys seen some of my other videos, a lot of times I do profit from these claims. Like, for example, if a bumper gets hit and Toro gives me $900, most times I can go to Certifit or one of these third-party sellers and purchase that same bumper for $100, throw it on, and the body shop might charge me like $250 to paint it. So for every claim, I can usually profit about $300 to $500. Now the trick is trying to get the vehicle back on as fast as possible so you can keep the rentals going. That's the hard part. Sometimes my loss of revenue, when I add it in there, I might make a couple $100. 90% of the time, I'm in a profitable zone when it comes to claims. So I'm not adding in any figures from my claims in this. This is just straight net revenue from rentals and the resale. So when I first mentioned this Camry in my last video, I had a comment from Scott, and he says, I don't agree with the decision to sell your Camry. You could have ran this car for another 2 years and it would have easily brought in another 15 to 20 grand. After 2 years, you could have still sold the vehicle for 5 grand. Now that's great insight, Scott. I totally agree with everything you're saying, but from past mistakes, I've made the decision that I wasn't going to keep these cheaper cars past 160. Now, maybe I should make an exception for certain Hondas and Toyotas, but this is what I've learned from the past, that if I try to keep the vehicle for longer and milk a little more profit out of it, I might be stuck with a larger repair like an engine or a transmission, and that's something I don't want any smoke with. I'd rather sell the car and move on to the next, get something with lower miles, and just keep it going like that. So I actually made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to keep any cars past 150. Maybe I should make an exception for these Toyotas and Hondas, but it's just part of my exit strategy. And I feel like everybody that's involved in this game should have an exit strategy. You should know exactly at what point you want to get out of the vehicle. If you don't and something happens, then you know you're going to be blaming yourself, and you're going to be feeling the feeling of regret. So right now for this vehicle, I don't feel any regrets, especially after being able to sell it for $10,000, and now I could take that money and roll it into a vehicle with a lot less mileage. I don't really want to be known as the guy who's renting out 200K mile cars on Turo. I want to be known for having good, reliable cars, but at the same time, when you jump in a car, you're renting it and you're paying whatever, $80 a day, and you look at the miles and it says 180. I don't know how the guest feels. They never really expressed that to me, but I try to put myself in their position, and I would much rather have a car under 100,000 miles, or maybe, you know, 130, 120, but I don't really want to keep cars on for 180 anymore. I just sold my Honda Odyssey a couple months ago, and I also had this vehicle like over 2 years. It was a great vehicle in my area. People love traveling to neighboring states like Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina. So this car was always in one of those states, and I kept the vehicle to like 210,000 miles, and I recently just sold it for $4,000. Now, had I sold this vehicle around 160, I feel like I could have got about $8,000. So before I wrap this video up, as promised, let me share with you guys how important the actual cash value of a vehicle is, and how important it is for buying vehicles that maintain this value throughout however long it is you keep it. 2011 Acura RDX, yeah, I know what you guys are thinking, damn, 2011, that's kind of old. But these Acuras, Infinitis, and Lexus, even though they're a little bit older, people still think they're new. So this is a 2011 Acura RDX. I literally only had this car on the platform for 3 months. I bought it for $3,600, did a bunch of repairs, had to put a bunch of work to it. But you guys know I don't mind doing the work as long as I get paid in the end, which I did. So I was into this vehicle, complete, total, everything, registration, body work, seat covers for $7,538.36. And one renter really liked the car and he was keeping it for a few weeks. But last month he hit me up in the middle of the night and told me that he had pretty much gotten into an accident on the highway on 285 and that the car was in rough shape. Once he sent me a picture, I pretty much knew the car was totaled right away. So of course I had to go to the tow yard where the car was and pull off my $700 seat covers, because who knows, I might get another Acura RDX or a Honda CR-V that I could throw these seat covers in. So I definitely had to go and get that back. Car was totaled out and my check was about $13,400. Now, I just said I was into this car for $7,500. 3 months later, $13,000. So as much as I don't want anybody to get hurt renting these cars, but the reality is once you do enough rentals, you will have a total loss here and there. And this is about my 12th total loss that I had, but I had 2,000 trips under my belt and countless smaller damage claims. But you have to make sure that the vehicles you're buying maintain their value and make sure you have some kind of equity built into the vehicle. So like I said earlier, even if the car crashes from day one, you're still profitable. So I think you guys know where I'm going with this video. The best economy vehicles, if that's your game, are these Japanese vehicles, the Hondas, the Toyotas, the Acuras, the Lexus, the Infinitis. And you notice I didn't add Nissans in there only because I'm not a big fan of the CVT transmission that comes in a lot of Altimas and Maximas. Now in this video, I'm not gonna talk about which cars I stay away from that I don't buy. I'm gonna actually add a little suspense to it and make you guys wait on that. But eventually I will put that video out because there's certain cars that I don't buy at all. I stay away from. Don't want to see it, don't want to know how cheap it's going for. I'd much rather flip it instead of trying to rent it out because they're just not cars that have proven to go the distance. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And like always guys, if you guys like this content, like, subscribe, share, comment, and keep showing me love, and I'll keep cranking these videos out. I appreciate all you guys once more. Now it's time to get back to work because there's money to be made. I'll catch you guys on the next time around.